Welcome to the UI experience. Welcome to the UI experience.
Good afternoon, urban intellectuals and those out there in online listening land. This is yours truly, Jalal Tariq, with the latest edition of Real Talk with Jalal Tariq. Real Talk for real people with real problems. And today, my friends, I have been blessed with not only one, but two professors to grace the airwaves with yours truly. Today I have as a special guest, Brother Ade. And I still be trying to pronounce your first name, so I don't want to butcher it, so I'll let you do it when you get on the mic. And as usual, one of our regulars, Professor Carl Tone Jones, is here as well. But before we jump into the show and jump into the different topics that we want to deal with today, as usual, I want to urge everybody to donate to the cause and to try and push this, what we are trying to do, forward. You can go to urbanintellectuals.com/members, and for the low price of $24 a year and $2 a month, if you want to break it down like that, you can become a card-carrying member of Urban Intellectuals. And if by chance you don't want to be a member but you still want to donate to the cause, you can go to urbanintellectuals.com/donate, and you can give to your heart's content. Now, that being said, I was flicking through online land as I usually do when I'm looking for different topics that I might want to deal with. And, that's the one thing I do love about Open Disc. Although it's, well over 4,000, I think right at 4,300 members or so. Every once in a while, in between the fight videos and some of the rest of the stuff that ends up on our particular page for some odd strange reason before the censors get to it, it'll be something on that is thought-provoking. And Brother Day asked a question this morning, basically, what is the black experience? Which, you would think that, that's a fairly easy question to answer. What do you mean? How do you define the black experience? Oh, well, it's living in America as a black man. That's, the simple, shallow, surface answer to a particular question like that. But if you really think about it and you sit down, you will come up with quite a few different answers. And before I stick my 2 cents in here, since you posed the question, Brother Day, I want to hit you first, and I want to go with you first. And first of all, where did you come up with the question? Was there something that happened? Was there impetus or something that made you come up with that question? And give me what your thoughts is answering your own question, my friend.
First off, let me just say I definitely appreciate you having me, brother. It's always a pleasure to be on air with you, and a good afternoon to all of those listening. The question is something that I have recently been struggling with. As I'm a teacher, I often pose that question to some of my students and ask them to define, whether it be qualify or quantify, what it means to be an African American. Then furthermore, what is the black experience? Also, as of the last couple of weeks, we've got a lot of people who have been jumping on and off of the blackish bandwagon, and I'm one that I'm riding shotgun on the blackish bandwagon because I actually appreciate the show. But one of the things I think that we have to really think about is exactly what is the black experience. Oftentimes, we identify with something or a circumstance because it is part of our experiences. And so one thing that I would be hesitant to say is that there is one black experience. I mean, I can't speak to an experience of someone who has millions but is yet still African American, just like I can't speak to someone who doesn't have millions who's African American. But I can speak to my own experiences as African American. And so I pose a question because I just wanted to know from others. I mean, how would you define the black experience itself?
Okay. And I'll throw it over to my other special guest, Professor Carl. As the brother did, he distinguished between the different experiences that we all know is going to exist between those who are of financial means and those who might not have as much as far as financial means is concerned. You know, we all know the differences between whether or not you live in the hood, on the outskirts of the hood, on burbs, on the outskirts of the burbs, whether or not you live down south on a farm. We all know that experience is different. But how would you define the black experience as a whole?
Oh, and thanks for having me on this program. You know, I love the fact that we have a midday format that discusses our issues. So, you know, peace and blessings to you and everybody else that's listening in. You know, I think Brother Day, or Dr. Day, I want to call him, give him his due, hit a few key strokes there in discussing it, the fact that our experience is diverse. So I don't believe that there's one black experience or one universal black experience, except to say that our experience directly correlates to our relationship with racism and white supremacy. Specifically, if we're talking about the black experience in America, it's the one commonality that everybody who is black is going to have to deal with at some point or another in their lives. So that would be the one commonality. Now, there's brothers and sisters who, or as you stated earlier, who are dealing with an indulgence of wealth, and then there's brothers and sisters who are dealing with poverty. There are brothers and sisters who are somewhat in between. And then, you know, when we start talking about the academic level, we start talking about consciousness and things of that nature. I mean, the experience is vast. So one thing I can say about our experience is that we are creators. You know, we're probably, the black experience is that of creation and of benevolence, even though we've taken on some malevolent ways. But basically, those would be my answers in terms of the actual black experiences. One, if you go back to our history and our culture, is one that was esteemed and stooped in love, unity, family, and community. And even though we've shied away from those things, there's still an element of that coexists in our society today. And I think that a lot of us are yearning to get back to that.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. And I agree wholeheartedly, 100%. If someone was to, I basically stick a mic in my face and say, okay, I want you to define the black experience, I guess my answer would be just similar to yours, but just a tad bit different. And maybe it's because of what I've been through in my life, and maybe it's because of my age, because I don't know exactly how old you guys are, but I'm quite sure that neither one of you is old or as elderly as I am. I like to call it more mature, me myself. But in any event, if I had to put a definition on the black experience, I would say it all comes down to one thing: struggle. I remember back in the day, I was at Juma one day, and for those who don't know, that's like Islamic worship services. And the imam made a good analogy, and it's something that stuck with me over all these years, because I think I heard this like 30 years ago, 35 years ago, something like that. And his point was that we are born into struggle. We struggle from the time that we leave our father's scrotum to the time that somebody puts us in the grave. We leave our father's scrotum amongst 700 million, I forget what the number is, million other sperm. And we were the one who persevered. Half of them made the wrong turn, went up the wrong fallopian tubes, was lost. Half of them didn't get through the minefield that exists within the woman's womb. We were the one who made it to the egg, and out of the 1, 2, 3, 4 of us that made it to the egg, we were the ones that gained entry. So that started our life of struggle. And then once we came out into this world, depending on how our particular family situation is, and there's a common misconception. Let me go off on a tangent for a second. There's a common misconception that people with money don't struggle. That's nonsense. If they don't do anything else, they struggle to keep their money. So even if you could look at somebody over the fence and say, I sure wish I had his money. I sure wish I had his car. I sure wish I had that house. You got to think of it like this. And I'm going to come back off my tangent. You got to think of it like this. I would rather be living from paycheck to paycheck with maybe $200, $300, $400, $500 in the bank than have a car note, than have a mortgage that I basically got to, rob Peter to pay Paul to pay. I would rather have that than have $10,000, $15,000 in credit card debt that never goes away. I would rather have that than owe my child school because he wants to play hockey or he wants to play soccer or he wants to do this, karate, that, all kinds of things. I would rather have what little I have and not owe anyone because cash is king than have all of this debt. So coming back off that tangent, life is about struggle. The black experience especially is about struggle. It's about struggle from the fact that when we get to school, we're automatically assumed that we're not going to do anything. And both my special guests are, they make that whole proposition a joke because look at what they have accomplished with their lives. I know individuals like myself that came out of the belly of the beast, that came out of prison and are now doing what I do. I know guys that came out of prison that became writers. I know guys that came out of prison that became actors. I know guys that came out of prison and became journalists. They became authors. They became everything that society told them they wasn't going to do. And how did they do that? Because they were able to struggle just that harder. They were able to circumvent. They were able to overcome. They were able to avoid all of the obstacles that's put in front of us as black people to keep us from gaining success. So if I had to define the black experience, it's about running a race that never ends. And I'm done. Anybody else got anything to add to that?
I agree with you, brother, wholeheartedly. I actually don't have, or actually I have this one caveat that I would say that we should also understand that like you said, there are different meanings of struggle, but then with that also, there's a difference for me between struggle and survive. And so I think oftentimes it's a misconception to say struggle when we actually mean survive and vice versa. And so, I myself am a product of the urban community as well. And it was when I was in, as a elementary school student that I understood the importance of education and decided to use that as my vehicle to escape poverty and the urban community. And so at some point we must understand that it's not so much about the struggle. It's not about survival, but it's about the struggle, which is a justified meaning within survive, because we want to create, not destroy. Because again, survival implies that you are just destroying whatever resources are around in order to get what you want. But again, we struggle. We are using the resource that we have to build what we need. But with that also being said, it's difficult to say that, someone with a certain degree is experiencing the same situations as those who don't have a degree. I think that makes the individuals have a degree look silly, and though it makes a mockery of those who don't. So, we just, again, it is the diversity of experiences, if you will, that I believe defines what the black experience is. It's a culmination of all that we go through to create an existence of who we are and to use that existence as a platform to become a better people. Now I'm done. Okay, I promise.
No, you're not. No, you're not. This
is probably true, but I'm gonna cut off now, though. I'm listening.
If I could add to that,
yes, sir.
I think there's a certain level of perseverance too. That also is included, and I guess it goes back to saying that our experience is so diverse, and it's probably the most diverse because the black experience has been under attack. Just being black, we've been under attack, and war has been pretty much waged against us since the inception of this country. So, and then it has expanded on a global scale. So, I definitely see our experience as one of perseverance, survival, and struggle. So, to put all those together, if we were going to bake a cake and call it the Black Experience, it would have many layers, many flavors, and a hell of a lot of a host of toppings to assist it when all those things are considered.
Yes, sir. The icing on that cake would be crazy. When I talk to kids, this is what I always tell, especially the young juveniles that I talk to, especially the ones that's got their foot half, way into the penitentiary and they just really don't know it. I like to tell them, say, man, look, you want to look down on your life because you live in the jets or you live in the hood or you live in whatever they may call it, the ghetto, whatever I don't know what the name is now for, living in lower socioeconomic type conditions. But I used to tell them kids all the time, say, look, man, think about it like this. Like Brother Day said, survival as opposed to living. You have survived things that the average Navy SEAL couldn't survive. And you have been doing it since the time that you actually became aware of your surroundings, the time that your mama basically put you down on the floor and let you explore. You have been doing that since that particular day. You have survived the death of the civil rights movement, if you're that old. You have survived crack cocaine. You have survived major gang warfare, because for those people who don't know, who like watch Fox News or CNN and only get their news from major media outlets, crime is actually going down in America, not up. Regardless of what they might try and make you believe by, showing you all these fear-mongering stories, crime is actually going down. Of course, you're going to have your aberrations. You're going to have people that's going to commit crime. There's always been crime. There's crime in the ghetto. There's crime in the rich neighborhoods. We just hear about the ghetto all the time. But you survived all that. You survived substandard schools. You survived the wholesale destruction of the black family. You survived the fact that your pops may have been in prison. Or your mom may have been in prison, because that's becoming a thing too now. I don't know when it became a thing, but that's becoming a thing too now. You survived all that. You survived being raised by your grandmama, who came up in an entirely different environment, so she really didn't have no understanding for none of the stuff that you was talking about. You know what I mean? She came up in a era that kids were seen and not heard. You survived that. You survived your early adulthood when you was rudderless, like all 18, 19-year-olds are when they're out from under mom and dad. They don't really know what they want to do. They enroll in college, but they don't pick a major. The first 2 years when they get that associate's degree, 9 times out of 10, it's in general arts, because they haven't figured out what they wanted to do with their lives. You survived all that. You survived going to trade school and learning to be a auto mechanic. You survived all that. What makes you think that you can't survive conditions today? So, if you, and this is my question to you, good brothers, and then we'll move on, because I think I think you said you had something else that you had to do, so you was only going to be here for a minute. But now, this is my question to you. If you had to explain your definition to, say, a group of youngsters between the ages of 18 to, I say, 22, 23, how would you word it in a way that will give them hope, that will give them motivation, and that would give them guidance in whatever it is that they might want to do with their lives. So how would you do that? Let me ask you that. And Brother Dale, I guess I take you first.
Okay. You know what, I would. That's a difficult question to answer, but I'll try my best to be clear in my response. And simply, I would explain, as I told a student today, that you have to look inward and stop as opposed to looking outward. And what typically happens is that everyone else is able to define and categorize what the black experience is, except the people who are black and look like us on a daily basis. And so there's just an element that one has to learn, one has to go through a certain amount of experiences, one has to be reflective in their experiences to really understand what it means and how it relates to them. Again, I honestly believe that is part of the individual. It's not one that can be defined by a group of people or a number of people. It's, again, based on your experience. Again, experiences are perceptions, and those are based on reality. And so whatever you experience will eventually become your reality. And that's why I say, even, sometimes when talking to youth in the urban community, they'll say, well, I just don't get it, or this ain't for me. Well, how do you know what's for you if you've never tried it? And so there are just a number of different avenues, and we have to be deliberate in our approach to ensure that they understand a number of experiences as opposed to limiting their experiences based on what we've been exposed to. And that's another thing that gets me as well. We have to hope that we are exposing our youth to enough so that they can at least categorize and define their experiences, so that at some time they can use those as navigational tools, if you will, to the next generation to come along. Somehow along the way, we got lost. And, I said earlier on Facebook today that, a teacher is simply a traveler that is in search of lost objects. And so we use this knowledge to help them and give them navigational tools to find their way so that they won't make the same mistakes the previous generations made. I know it's a long answer to a short question, but I hope I did answer your question in about 4 or 5 different ways.
But, actually, it's not a short question, because that question has layers and layers and layers and layers and layers, because you're going to give a different speech to a group of high school graduates that might be taking advanced placement college courses than you're going to give to a remedial English class. It's going to be the same message, but it's going to be a different speech. You see what I'm saying? So, that covers it.
Yeah, it does. But you know what? I just want to push back. I'll probably get the same speech and the same message, because the thing is that as Brother Professor Tone Jones said earlier, there's an element of perseverance that we have to instill in all of our youth, and it's not about the level or the academic acumen, if you will. It's more about understanding that we all have to experience. We all have a significant set of experiences, if you will. And now I'm talking in circles. But the point is that I would definitely get the same speech to the same students. It wouldn't matter for me, because they all have to persevere, and they all have to be in a place to understand that perseverance is what's going to help you endure.
Carl, what you think?
I have to. Well, I mean, we're a bunch of like-minded thinkers on the show today, so I think we're going to agree a lot about a lot of what we say. I would just add that the way I would break down the black experience for a group between the ages of 18 and 23 would be, I would do it from a historical context that showed that our history didn't start with slavery, and it didn't end with the "I Have a Dream" speech. I would give them insight as to the great inventors of our eras, the boom towns, the black communities that prospered, and I would tap into, how they, based on their current limited scope, are even utilizing those aspects of their lives to expand upon the black experience. And similar to what Brother Day has stated, I would definitely focus on their inner abilities, their inner self, and how they themselves can help to define and redefine the black experience, because it's a process of evolution. It's evolving as we speak. It's evolving as we live, as we breathe, as we eat. It's evolving. So, the black experience 20 years ago is not the black experience today. We have to instill in them that they are the black experience, and they will be the future teachers of and presenters of what the black experience is. So their culture, what they take heed in, what they do is the black experience. I think we definitely have to expose them to more of the spectrum of accomplishments and what they can potentially be. I think one of the conversations I was having with a brother as I was setting up a date for my new lecture coming up at Black and Nobel Bookstore is the fact that our children, our people, have an issue with seeing what our potential and our experience is versus what it could be, because it's never truly been presented in its full splendor. So one of the things I would do is show them, just by the little that they have been exposed to, how creative they've been with that, and to open their eyes to new horizons as far as what they can personally do individually and what we can do as a community to build. But if I was to tell them about the black experience, it would be basically that it's still evolving and that they are the black experience.
And I was that you took the words right out of my mouth, to be honest. This is where I differ a bit with Brother Day, and maybe a little bit with you. I have always been the type of guy and the type of speaker that I've always believed that you got to talk to the people where they are, and based upon, and it's funny too because I live in the burbs, and a lot of the brothers and the little young African American kids out here, with the exception of the N word, you would never know that they were black. You could tell of course, by the tone of their voice, just like you can get on the phone and you could tell who you're talking to, whether or not they're black or white. It's just something about our voices that sound beautiful to us. But their mannerisms, the way they phrase words, the way they define things, you would never think that they were black. So my message to them is a little bit different than the brother who, came straight out the hood. I shouldn't say that. I said that wrong. The message is not different. The way I bring the message to them is different. And what I see a lot of times is just like what you brothers said, in and around the way of saying, a lot of times when we bring this message to these kids, we bring the message in the sense of, look at me. Look at what I've done. I'm beating on my chest. Ooh, I made it, so you can make it. And although that might be true, how you bring it to them makes a world of difference on whether or not they will internalize it and accept it as being real. I go in, I tell them, say, look, dude, there's nobody in this room that had a harder life than I did. Nobody, not a one of you. None of you have been alive long enough to have as hard a life as I have. And I'm trying to figure out a way to keep you from actually going down that road, because everybody's experience is going to be different. But you have an immense effect on your life experience. The choices that you make right now as a kid will affect you for the rest of your life. And it's a lot deeper than saying just don't commit crime. Just stay away from the criminal justice system and you'll be cool. It's deeper than that. It's about you changing the persona that you project to the outside world. In a way, a lot of people don't like to look at it like that, but in a way, it's real. It's about being sort of schizophrenic when it comes, sort of bipolar when it comes to your persona that you project to the real world. Because I can't talk to a room full of possible financial donors for, say, a nonprofit project that I'm trying to get off the ground, or some other type of group that I'm looking for funding for. I can't talk to them the same way I talk to the fellas at the barbershop. That's just being real. Don't make you fake, but you have something that you're trying to do, and the only way you're going to be able to do what you need to do is to basically tailor your message so that people can understand it. So I tell them, I say, man, sometimes you just got to be bipolar, man. You know, when you go for the job interview, don't smoke no weed. Don't go in there. Even if I've interviewed hundreds of kids, and some of them will come in and talk to me like they've known me for years, just because they see a black face. So they think they're going to get something special, or they think they're going to get preferential treatment just because they're black, and they do. They do. I've had guys walk up to me and ask me for a job interview, and I schedule them knowing I'm not going to hire them. But I want to bring them in for the experience so I can tell them exactly what they did wrong. Now get yourself together, because I know you've been smoking because I can smell it on you. Give me 60 days, come back, and apply to me like you really want this job. And you'd be surprised how many of them came back. But be that as it may, my point is that in my estimation, you have to tailor that message to certain individuals, or they just not gonna get it. And some might, wash their hands with it and say, well, if they don't get it, they don't get it. But the ones who do get it, they're not my concern. Because if they don't get it from me, they'll get it from Brother Ade. If they don't get it from Brother Ade, they'll get it from Brother Carl. They'll get it from Patrick. They'll get it from Jackson Rock. They'll get it somewhere, or analogs to us. They'll get it somewhere, those who are going to get it immediately. My impetus is on those individuals who just seem like they just lost. Anyway, that's just me. I get off my soapbox, but that's how I feel about it. Oh, and I think I got another caller. Anyway, I want to, since we put that to bed, I want to jump to our second actual topic now. Topic number 2. And I don't know if you brothers have children. I have 3. I have an 8-year-old boy and 2 urban terrorists that's in there tearing up my living room right now because I can hear them on the other side of that wall. And they're 2. What is good parenting? And more importantly, does parenting need to change with the time? What got me on this particular issue was the actual meme that's going hard in Open Disc about the brother who, I guess his 10-year-old kid that's 5'9". Wow. 10-year-old girl that's 5'9" is on Facebook and Twitter telling people she's between the ages of 14 and 18, depending on what you want to listen to. And how he took a picture of her, in her, Hello Kitty stuff with pink bows in her hair, and say this is how she really goes to school, basically fronting her out. And I guess the conversation was back and forth between whether or not that was a good idea, whether or not that was actually going to do more harm than good. So my question is, does parenting need to change with the time? Because we all know that these kids don't get it like we got it. So, Carl, I'm going to hit you first.
Well, thank you, brother. Yeah, parenting does need to change with the times. Now, I'm familiar with the story that you're referring to, and there's several different layers upon this. For the most part, all any of us really know about that particular issue is what was presented to us on a public format. So there could be a lot of things that was discussed between the father and his daughter prior to this or whatever. But to go back further to discuss the question at hand, we have to adapt to the times because there are things that are more accessible to children now. 20 years ago, social media wasn't an issue. You have cyberbullying now. You have all sexting. You have all sorts of predators involved in the and that can have access to your children. And if you're not careful, without your knowledge, you have to understand that in this age where there's a 24-hour news cycle, that they're always going to be exposed to new types of information. The over-sexualization of society nowadays, so children who are 10 years old, for instance, are dealing with issues that were reserved for a conversation that you would have with your teenager 20 years ago. So we have to adapt to the situations around us because we don't live in a bubble. We live in a society that's ever evolving and changing. And with our accessibility to all of these new things, we always look at the positive aspects of them. But the negative aspects of these things are that they are quite invasive into their personal lives. So, you don't have a situation where there's just one television in the house and it's in the living room and it's when the family is sitting there watching TV. You have people, children now who have iPhones, Android phones. So the information that was just privy to the entire family to view is now available to individuals who have access to these devices. And that's not the only part of it. We're dealing with a time and era now where there's not as much going on in schools. The schools, as particularly in the inner cities, the schools are being stripped of all the extracurricular activities. The things that would normally occur, which would allow for community parenting, such as the drill teams, such as the chess club, or such as the sports activities, things of that nature, where you can have an additional parental figure give input to your child's life. Those things are no longer available as they may have been in the past. So, this is definitely an issue where we have to adapt to these things. We have to sort of make changes on the move, because if we don't, then we'll find ourselves in situations where our children are out and about and involved and lost in the world that, quite frankly, we're not preparing them to deal with.
Brother Day, what you think?
I'm here. I agree. Again, as Professor said a minute ago, it's going to be a ton of different agreements going on. But I would just add that the tough love aspect of parenting is gone, and so it's quickly transitioned or shifted to this idea of he just expressing himself, or let him grow up. But here's the thing: our job as parents are to guide our children into doing what they're supposed to be doing, not what they want to do. Again, we talked about this idea of lost objects earlier, and I mean, if something is lost, how the hell does it know where to be found? And so it is our job to give our children the necessary tools, skills, and advantages to do what they need to do to be the best that they can be. And I say the best that they can be because, again, telling someone this is what you should do, again, is trying to identify this idea of black experience, which we just all agree that it can't be qualified or quantified using just one example. And so going back to the brother who put his daughter on Facebook, I definitely see him trying to rectify the situation. But I guess my issue is that, when I discipline my child, I like to privately reprimand and publicly praise. I don't have to put it on Facebook, because Facebook is not the measure of whether or not I'm going to be a great parent. Facebook is not the measure of whether or not my child is going to do what he or she needs to do when they get old enough. And so I do agree with the him doing that, but I think we have to be conscious, and we have to be think about the actions we take in terms of how we publicize our children, because that in itself can do damage that cannot be reversed. And so, again, I tell my kids all the time, I can never be your friend. I can only be your dad. Because being your friend implies that there won't be certain ramifications that you have to deal with when it's time for you to lay the hammer down. And I think that that's right there. What we also need to understand is that a lot of days it's not even about parenting. It's more about friending. I'm going to friend my child. You can't friend your child. Your child will never experience what you've experienced. Your job, again, is to make sure your child is doing what they need to do. And so just going again back with what Professor Tone was just saying, we do have to prepare them, and we do have to make sure that they're going in the right direction. But putting my child on Facebook to show or to penalize her for doing something saying was the wrong age, actually I look at it as a reflection and say, well, what the hell was I doing? And why was I so busy, in which I didn't know this was going on to begin with? There's no way that someone's going to be in my household and I don't know what's going on. Even if my son is 10 and my daughter's 8, I have a 2-month-old, and I talk to all of them the same. I sit my 2-month-old down and talk to him just like I talk to them. And he just looks at me like I'm crazy. But the thing is that when you have a open door of communication, there should never be an issue that you can't get through and to your children. There should never be an issue. That right there is the most valuable resource when it comes to parenting, in my opinion, which is simply this idea of how are you going to communicate, over-communicate, articulate, whatever words you want to put in place of that to your children, if this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing. In fact, just one last point. One of the genius things in the show Blackish the other day, last week, was that his son wasn't scared of the whipping so much because he had clothes on. He can defend himself against the whipping. His son was destroyed when he found out that he disappointed him. And I mean, that's profound in a way. When your child feels like he or she has disappointed you, that is more hurtful than anything. But see, that disappointment is grounded in respect and understanding. And if you have no respect and understanding, you have things like these kids out here doing what they want to do. A parent saying, well, yeah, I'm your friend. No, it just can't be. It just cannot be.
And I agree wholeheartedly. And I just want to drill down on one other thing that you said. Like you said, being your child's friend as opposed to being their parent. And I know that we find this a lot, not in all, but in some instances where there's not a large difference between the ages of the child and the mother. Depending on how young the girl was when she had that first baby, they tend to, not all, not going in on nobody, but they tend to become a friend to their daughter, become a friend to their son, as opposed to being a parent. Old people used to tell me all the time, boy, when you grow up, for the first 10 years of your son's life or your daughter's life, they're supposed to fear you. And I was like, why would they? What about respect? If I think I can get, to them better, or, get them to understand better if they respect me. He said, kids that age don't have a concept of respect. They only have a concept of fear. And he used this analogy. A kid who respects you will listen to what you say, will tell you what their point of view is. Y'all will discuss it. They'll decide that your point of view is correct, and they'll go and they'll act accordingly. So when your 5-year-old, 4-year-old child is going to run out into that street and you could see that car coming and you know that car is getting ready to smash your son, that's not the time to have a discussion. That's not the time to start talking about whether or not you respect me or whether or not you fear me. But when I say stop, and I say that stop with that stop tone of voice, they stop because they fear the consequences of what's going to happen if they don't stop. Now, that being said, now we move into a child is 10, a child is 11, a child is 12, and getting to be as young as 8. I found my son was looking at porn on Netflix the other day, and I'm scratching my head how he got around parental controls. He's smart, though. He is really smart, but that's a whole other story. He looking at porn. So now I gotta have a conversation with my 8-year-old son about sex. When I was 8 years old, I was playing with marbles and playing shoot 'em up cowboy. What was I doing at 8? 6 was the furthest thing from my mind. Of course, we knew what it was. We had older brothers, older cousins that had Playboy magazines or whatever, but we looked at it. We were like, okay, yeah, she's naked. Oh, well, big deal. Come on, man, let's go play baseball. But now we're having to, because of social media, because of what they have access to as far as entertainment is concerned, you like to say, my child is not going to even get a phone until they're 18 years old or 16 years old, whatever the arbitrary age they are. But the only problem is you have no control over their friends at school. My son is in the 3rd grade, and he's got friends that got iPhone 6s that they bring to school every day. He's got friends that's all they don't even want to play on recess. They all sit around in a circle and watch stuff on this guy's iPhone 6. So you have to deal with that. Like you said, it's a different time. They have access to different types of motivations, different types of entertainment, different types of information that we didn't have when we was kids. So like you said, where was I as a parent that this was going on in my household, and my daughter can have all these social media accounts, and she's doing all of this on all these social media accounts, and I didn't know anything about it. It's easy. Because I would be willing to bet dollars to donuts she didn't do none of that at home. She did it in the streets. She did it at a friend's house. That way it'd never get back to her daddy. But it did. Now, our parents, you probably would have took old layer hide off of us, but, it's not that tight. Now, things that our parents used to do to us, you can go to jail for the day, But he handled it the best way he know how. The only thing I disagree with as far as the way he handled it is it opens up that child to cyberbullying. Because not only have you humiliated that child in front of her classmates, you have humiliated that child in front of her entire school. When my mama came up there and beat my butt for something I did to my 3rd grade teacher, it's a long story too. The only people that really knew about it was the people in the class and the people in the hallway that heard me screaming, right? In her situation, everybody on Facebook, however 50, 60 million people had an opportunity to see that particular post. So now basically what he has done, if this girl, she's 5'9", so she's probably on her way to Brittany Griner type height at 10 years old, If she grows up and she becomes this baller, she's on her way to $1 million career doing something. The only thing that people going to remember her for is when she was 10 years old, her daddy put her online and put her on blast for telling people she was 18 years old when she was actually only 10. I don't know how you could. I've talked to 10-year-olds. I don't know how you convince somebody you 18 years old just by talking.
See, what I mean? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, brother.
No, go ahead. Ain't that crazy, though?
I just want to say that right there is where I have the most issues because as a parent, you begin to understand that there are certain things that you just don't do. And again, anytime an adult has to put on Facebook what his or her child is doing, that makes me question the maturity of the adult in itself. And furthermore, let's not misunderstand the importance of relationships with your kids as well, because we model how a relationship should operate. We model how a relationship looks. We model what attributes or what roles relationships play. And if I am at home in a dysfunctional situation with my child, then of course he or she will go out and have those same dysfunctional relationships with friends. But if I model what a relationship looks like with my wife, and I model what a relationship looks like between a parent and a child, then he or she will not go looking for otherwise what they've been taught in the home. And so that right there is also what we have to make sure we're understanding, because again, This idea of tough love is one thing, but then the idea of relationship is another. I mean, I can talk study upon study that has said, even from the 60s, we bring forth the Moynihan report that if we do not uplift or we do not rebuild the black family, starting with the black father, then guess what? We will have a problem. And so he said in that study that this can be either America's greatest enrichment or greatest failure. And so we see today the ramifications of that study, which shows that, guess what, it was a failure. Why? Because we don't have the positive relationships in the household. And again, that leads to the dysfunctional relationships that kids experience outside the household that they think are normal because they're so used to dysfunction that they want to use chaos as a form of function. You can't do that. And so the point is that, again, you know, when we have this idea of, okay, yeah, you know, kids will be kids and kids will experience this, but if I'm teaching my child in the household how to operate, then the hope is that, and the goal, and again, this is not 100% proof. I have no empirical evidence to support this fact, but I believe it to be true because it worked for me and it's damn sure it worked for my kids. The thing is that if I show them what's right, then you know what? They won't steer to what's wrong. It's only when we see dysfunction and we believe the dysfunction is the way we function that we continue to steer that way.
That is true. That is true. Carl, you get the last word on this topic.
Yeah, you know, Brother Day is right. And, you know, when you talk about the failure for, you know, the relationships between the black family, you look at the dysfunction and where it comes from, where the rest. Just take into consideration this brother here, and a lot of people have alluded that when you look at his personal pictures and personal things on Facebook, it doesn't speak to family values. It doesn't speak to building a relationship. This brother is in the business of promoting being a player of some sort. You know, there's no pictures of mom in the picture. I mean, I don't know the family structure. I don't know the whole story. But when you see it initially, this brother's in the club. He's holding the bottles. He's toasting this type of environment. So basically, you know, it's being transferred. This dysfunction is being transferred to yet another generation. And when we have all of these different aspects that are attributing to our inability to produce for the next generation of things of that nature, it lies in the roots of our discord, of our inability to build a solid foundation with our children, to have that level of understanding. I think that they spoke earlier about having communication. Communication is key to so many issues in our community, but especially with the relationship between parents and their children. To have a strong understanding of what it actually means to be a fit parent. To have all of those things. When we are addressing and defaming our children in public, that means the situation has gotten out of control from the privacy of or the sanctity or the supposed sanctity of our relationships with our children. So to look at it any further is really, I think we need to re-examine what our roles are as parents and how do we go forward and add a dose of humility to it to say that, listen, there's no real book, there's no guidebook to say to every situation in order to be a perfect parent, that we sometimes need assistance, outside assistance. We may need counseling. We may need some advice from peers who are dealing with successfully with their children, who are able to relate to their children, who are not going through the same social struggles, who have overcome some of those social struggles with our children. We need to be open to that. And we need to stop thinking impulsively and responding impulsively when it comes to our actions with our children. So I would just add those parts to what Brother Day and you had said earlier to the discussion.
That's good point. I got a partner of mine that he's raising his kids, and one of his kids is a little girl, And I tell him all the time, man, dude, you need to find you a wife. Because, yeah, she's all cuddly and cute right now. I said, but when it come time to explain to her about certain things that you have no experience with, she going to need a mama in her life. And she's going to need, somebody other than your grandmother. Because your grandmother, yeah, she can impart wisdom, but she can't really talk to her about today's society as far as little boys is concerned, about changes in her body and what that's going to, lead her to might want to do. And the sad thing about it is a lot of women today look on that as being condescending. The first thing they want to throw up in your face, well, I don't got to be a girl. How come the boys need fathers too? And I tell my sister friends that they got boys and no man in their life, you need to find you a husband, not a boyfriend, not a friend with benefits. You need to find you a husband. You need to find you somebody that's respectable, somebody that's conscious, hopefully, somebody that's sensible, that's going to be able to teach these kids how to be men because, sorry, you can't do it. Maybe that will be our next, show, and that'll be the topic of our next show is whether or not they can actually teach a boy to be a man. And can a man teach a little girl to be a woman? We'll talk about that one day. And with that, we're coming up on, it'll be an hour and less than a minute. Brother Day, I thank you, brother, for, actually coming in and finally making it to the show. I've been trying to get you on the show for the longest. Carl comes in and out. If a subject is weighty enough for him, he will actually, he'll actually partake. But he's here all the time, and I thank you for being here today, too, because my usual partners in consciousness, they had other arrangements and other things that they had to do. Much love to them. Hopefully they'll be back tomorrow for the regular show. And with that, as usual, I always end with the revolution will not be televised, but it must be funded. So I urge everybody to go to urbanintellectuals.com/members. And for the low price of $24, you can become a card-carrying member of Urban Intellectuals, or you can go to urbanintellectuals.com/donate, and you can give to your heart's content. We're here at Real Talk with Jalal Tariq every day at 1 p.m. Central Time. That's 2 o'clock on the East Coast and 6 in the morning in Fiji. So I ask everybody, come in, listen to us run off at the mouth, and hopefully you'll get something out of what we provide. And with that, I bid all of you adieu. Have a good day. Have a positive day. Have an uplifting day. And whatever you can, do something for our people. Peace.
Peace.
Okay, we off the air.
I definitely appreciate you, brothers. I appreciate the platform, brothers who